Okay, so we're back. Iran attacks Israel. Justin Trudeau is facing prison time for child abuse charges, and there's much more to cover. Let's get into it. Hard Talk Radio, live in 4K.
Israeli territory causing minor damage.
But not knowing when. Israelis experienced that feeling for most of last week. The Iranian military was poised to strike them, but no one knew when. Well, late last night it happened. Hundreds of projectiles were fired towards Israel. We're talking about a cocktail of weapons. Israel counted more than 300 of them. 170 drones, 30 cruise missiles, and 110 ballistic missiles. They were fired from different locations, from Iran, from Syria, from Iraq, and from Yemen. But Israel was ready for it. You see, this was a widely expected attack, a tit-for-tat response. Last week, Israel had struck Iran's embassy in Syria. They ended up killing top Iranian commanders, so Iran was always going to respond, which is why Israel and its allies were ready. They say around 99% of the projectiles were shot down, some over the Iraqi and Syrian airspace, the rest over Israel. It filled the night sky with explosions. Take a look. Now, 300 is a big number, but these drones and missiles caused very little damage. Around 12 people were injured and one girl was killed. Plus, the military base in southern Israel was slightly damaged. I guess the obvious question is how? It was a joint effort by Israel's allies, especially the US and the UK. Both countries had moved important assets to the region, the US and the UK. So when Iran attacked, they were ready. Fighter jets took off from undisclosed bases in the region. They shot down most of the drones before they reached the target. Even Jordan took down a few projectiles. Of course, some did make it to Israel, but those were shot down by the air defense system. And there are many layers to it. But this time, two of them were key. The Arrow system, which shoots down long-range missiles, and the Iron Dome, which shoots down short-range rockets. Both use the same concept. Track a projectile, fire ammunition at it, and blow it up in the sky. It's costly, but clearly effective. But good defense was not the only reason for the limited damage. Iran's attack was half-hearted. They wanted to create a spectacle. They wanted to appease their domestic audience. But damage perhaps was not their goal. Iran's foreign minister has admitted this. He says Tehran had informed the US about the nature of its attacks.
We announced to the White House in a message this morning that our operations will be limited and minimal, with the aim of legitimate defense and punishment of the Israeli regime.
Which brings us to the reactions. The world is understandably worried because, damage or not, this attack is unprecedented. In the past, Iran has used proxies to strike Israel, like Hezbollah and Hamas. They have never used their own military. This is the first direct Iranian attack on Israel, which makes it very significant.
But here's the thing, what Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had to say about this. One second. Okay, Israel admits it may not be able to destroy Hamas, blames America. Israel is now admitting that they may not be able to destroy Hamas. Well, Israel created Hamas, so wouldn't it be the Israeli government's fault since they created Hamas that they can't defeat it in the first place? And they're trying to pin the blame on America. This is the thanks we get for sending them billions of taxpayer dollars and endless weapons for 7 decades. From the Telegraph, Israel admits it may not be able to destroy Hamas. Now U.S. has turned its back. Israel may not be able to destroy Hamas despite 5 months of intense fighting in Gaza, intelligence officials have admitted. The main objective of the Gaza invasion faces failures as international support turns against Israel, sources warned. Israel believes it may be too late to find and destroy the remaining Hamas battalions as the U.S. has turned its back on Israel. If you asked me this a month ago, I would definitely say yes, we can eliminate Hamas, because at the time, the Americans were backing Israel. An Israeli intelligence source said they suggested this assessment had now changed. The U.S. doesn't support going into Rafah, which they did before, so the cards right now are not good, meaning Israel has to do something dramatic and drastic to change the momentum and climate, the source says. We have to go into Rafah one way or the other, but very aggressively, they insisted, without which the chances of Hamas survival looks more likely. The idea of destroying Hamas was always far-fetched. That's why Israel focused on bombing Gaza into the Stone Age with U.S.-applied weaponry and ethnically cleansing the land for additional Jewish settlements. Had they focused on fighting Hamas rather than bombing men, women, and children en masse in the name of wiping out Amalek, perhaps they would have been more successful, but they also would have taken more military losses. Israel can hardly call this war a success, considering the entire world is now united against them for committing genocide. And that's basically it. It just seems that they don't have a rhyme or reason. They don't see that, well, maybe trying to ethnic cleanse the Gaza Strip is a bad idea. After all, I mean, we have suffered so much at the hands of the Holocaust. Why don't we have some empathy for the Palestinians? No, they tried to use propaganda, tried to frame them as old enemies of the Old Testament, and people were not going to buy it at all. But let's get into Kevin Trudeau and what he's going through right now. All right. Hold on one. All right, I'm back. Yeah.
Canada's beleaguered Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is fighting for more than just his political life in the lead up to the national election. He's fighting to avoid spending the rest of his life behind bars on child sex charges. Trudeau has already lost his marriage due to his sordid history as a sex offender, but he's about to lose a whole lot more, according to investigators, who reveal that the globalist leader is about to be thrown under the bus and prosecuted on child rape charges if he loses the next election. Our shows make it into the top, actively blocking the release of the Jeffrey Epstein client list. As Rep. Tim Burchett explains, members of Congress, the judiciary and White House are compromised and found within the pages of the notorious pedophile's little black book.
Why do you think so many Democrats are committed to protecting the list of a dead pedophile? What possible national security implications could that have?
what you see in so many times. My dear friend Marsha Blackburn, I thought she was snubbed. That's why I got involved with it. She can handle her own, but when the Democrat-controlled Senate did that, I went to Chairman Comer in the Republican-controlled House, and I said, we need to fix this. This is wrong. And too many of my colleagues, I'm afraid, are compromised in this area for whatever reason. Somebody's whispered in their ear, said, hey, you don't want something to come out on something else, you better keep your mouth shut on this. And that's exactly what they've done. And it continues to go, whether it's the honeypot that the Russians used to use or something worse. I don't know, but it's clearly, you see that up and down the line. You see good conservatives vote for liberal policies, and frankly, you see some liberals occasionally that will vote for something else. So obviously, the Congress has been compromised, and this continues on through the White House, through the Justice Department. The trash can is very deep. It's not a swamp. It's an open sewer.
Former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn also admitted that serving members of the US House and Senate are operating under blackmail after they were caught in child sex honeypots. It's worth remembering that Mike Flynn was fired by then VP Mike Pence because Pence had a problem with Flynn's tweet about paedophiles in positions of power. Flynn says the Epstein client list must be released to the world because Epstein's influence in DC runs much deeper than most people understand. How did Kamala Harris, who has shown herself to be completely unqualified for the role of vice president, rise to the second highest office in the land? Did it have anything to do with her friendship with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? In 2012, there was simply no excuse for socializing with Ghislaine Maxwell and the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Unless, of course, you're an aspiring politician willing to do anything, and I mean anything, to get to the top. Which brings us to young Justin Trudeau, the high school drama teacher who suddenly left his job in the middle of a semester under the cloud of controversy. Trudeau's crimes against children are an open secret in Canadian politics at this point.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I was a high school teacher before getting into politics, and I'm having a little trouble remembering what exactly the job that the Leader of the Opposition had before getting into politics.
Yes, and he left right in the middle of the semester, and I'm having trouble remembering why. Now, Mr. Speaker.
Everybody in the Canadian Parliament knows the score. Trudeau is a dead man walking. So why hasn't the entire world heard about Trudeau's disgrace? Because Justin has been following in the authoritarian footsteps of his biological father, Fidel Castro, by muzzling the Canadian media and eliminating freedom of speech in the once proud democratic nation to our north. With the people rising up against him, investigators compiling evidence, and prosecutors circling, Trudeau has never been so desperate. And frankly, it shows. Earlier this week, Trudeau tried to blame everything on conspiracy theorists, while pining for the days when Canada only had 1 or 2 TV stations that could be completely controlled by the government.
There is out there a deliberate undermining of mainstream media. There are the conspiracy theorists, there are the social media drivers who are trying to do everything they can to keep people in their little filter bubbles, to prevent people from actually agreeing on a common set of facts, the way, the CBC and CTV, when they were our only sources of news, used to project across the country at least a common understanding of things.
How about this for a common understanding of things? The global elite selected Trudeau to be Prime Minister of Canada because he was compromised and could be blackmailed. Since his inauguration, he has systematically and remorselessly sold out the Canadian people to the globalist cause because they are pulling his puppet strings. You don't have to take my word for it. His own brother told us that.
What do you think your brother's reasoning is to be doing this to the Canadian people and tarnishing our cultural ways and who we are as Canadians? What is the drive that is his reasoning for all of this? What do you
right think? Well, I mean, I'm going to start by saying, like, Justin is the leader of the Liberal Party, and everything that's coming out of his mouth right now is written. All of his tweets are being produced by a team. All of his statements, he is the face and the lead spokesperson for the Canadian government, but the policy and the initiatives that are driving it and that are driving his this narrative that he continues to push, which in my opinion is the side of the anti-Canadian and anti-freedom, is coming down from the higher ups, from groups like the World Economic Forum, like the Council on Foreign Relations, like Bilderberg, etc. And they recognize we need to have these strong kind of agents within governments. And I think one of the things we've seen is all around the world we have frank weak leaders who are able to act as kind of spokespeople. Also, when you look at the history, you're married, but they're pushing and they're trying to make something happen. And this is how when a camera's on, then it's recorded, then you're blackmailed. And so blackmail is a very powerful tool.
Blackmail is more than just a powerful tool. In world politics in 2024, blackmail is making the world go round. Let's take a look at the evidence after this important message from our sponsor. His job every day. Sounds familiar. Remember when WikiLeaks emails revealed that John Podesta fantasized about running a hot dog stand in Hawaii? Recall the FBI told us that hot dog is a paedophile code word for very young boys. WikiLeaks also released an email from Hillary Clinton in which she told Podesta how she likes her hot dogs. It's a big club and they are all desperate to cling on to power and influence. This is the reason why Trudeau will never step down. It's the same reason why he's tightening the screws on the Canadian dictatorship, muzzling the press, corrupting the police, and
Trudeau Liberal vote against putting pedophiles on national sex registry. Yeah, this scumbag, man. This guy is really evil. I have to tell you. He is, very much against the Canadian people because he has somebody pulling his strings, and most of them are pedophiles. Most of them are. If they're supporting pedophile policies, just like in America with the Biden administration, supporting taking our tax dollars and using them to create sex dolls for child molesters, okay, hoping that they will only deal with dolls instead of kids, yeah, they're into that type of sick, demented behavior. Okay. And don't think that the Republicans are not into the type of disgusting crap as well. If you look into Donald Trump's history, you will see that as well. Plenty of information on alternative media sites that will show the truth about Trump and his dealings as well. All right. Well, let's talk about these barges that have been breaking loose on the Ohio River. Let's talk about that as if they broke loose by themselves. Fair use, by the way.
That's where multiple agencies are investigating now after barges broke loose and floated down the waterway. KDKA's Lauren Linder is in Emsworth with the details.
Megan, the commander for the Pittsburgh district of the Army Corps of Engineers, tells me all 26 barges that broke loose are accounted for. You can see some of them are resting right here against the Emsworth Lock and Dam on the Ohio River. But he says early indications show no issues to the dam. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Now, Pittsburgh police say the call came in around 11:30 last night. A spokesperson for the U.S. Coast Guard says 26 barges broke away from a vessel at mile marker 1. Out of the 26, 23 were loaded and 3 were empty. Those that were loaded were carrying dry cargo like coal, but no hazardous materials. There are no reports of contamination or pollution at this time. 11 of the barges came to a stop pinned against the riverbank by Bruno Island and are currently being held by a tugboat. The commander tells me 9 stopped here at the Emsworth Lock and Dam, and the remaining 6 went through the dam and have been accounted for downstream. 5 of them were located and 1, they believe, sunk in the river. They understand it's between the Emsworth Lock and Dam and the DeShields Lock and Dam. In the process, Peggy's Marina sustained extensive damage. We also saw damage, though, to other docks in the area. The incident remains under investigation, but the commander says the high water levels played a factor. According to police, Campbell Transportation Company owns and operates the barges, which is located on the left descending bank of the river just downstream from the West End Bridge.
Okay. So let's hear what they got, what some extra information they got on, and the government site, not the government site, but the site that the left wants to ban. Okay, as well as Republicans. Let's see what TikTok got to say about this. How this is also going to affect the economy in some way.
If you live in Pennsylvania or will be traveling to Pennsylvania, you need to watch this video. Last night, 26 barges broke loose and were floating down the Ohio River uncontrolled, nothing pulling them, nothing pushing them, just floating down the Ohio River. At least one bridge has been hit and officials are working on it. Pennsylvania DOT said that Saturday afternoon, the Sewickley Bridge was hit and it is closed indefinitely. So if you're going to be traveling around the Sewickley Bridge, make sure that you find a different route as that bridge will be closed due to damage. Now, Campbell Transportation is the company that owns the barges that were loose, and they are going to be looking into how those barges did break loose, but these are like piling up in the Ohio River. Barges are getting stuck at dams. A barge is pretty much just a floating raft, but very heavy. Okay, the idea is that a tugboat or sometimes now a boat will push these barges around, and typically they don't break loose, but the barge doesn't have its own means of propulsion. So there's no like steering it, slowing it down, making it go faster, etc. Not only is the Sewickley Bridge closed, the McKees Rocks Bridge in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is also stopped traffic. There were reports that these barges have jammed up the Emsworth Dam, as well as a lot of damage has been reported at Peggy's Marina. So avoid these areas, the Sewickley Bridge, Peggy's Marina, the Emsworth Dam, and also the McKees Rocks Bridge, as they are trying to get this all figured.
So this is could be used. Obviously these bridges are used for transporting goods, and having this situation will cause problems. And I believe this was deliberate. Possibly they're just testing things out to see what they, how the public reacts. We already know with the first incident with a ship hitting a bridge, all right, and destroying it, and 4 people lost their lives, how that was going to affect the economy. All right. And then we had other incidents of that as well, one in Oklahoma. So be on the lookout. It just seems these are happening on purpose. All right. But let's talk about California on a high alert as a strange seismic activity at the San Andreas Fault suggests a major earthquake may be happening down the road, may be happening soon. So let's get into that. we go. Fair use.
This is Dabu 7. Many people know that California has been long overdue for a major earthquake, and there's been a lot of talk about the big one for some time. Well, we're going to take a look here at the southern San Andreas Fault and what scientists say they believe has triggered all the big earthquakes in the past. And I would bet it's going to be what triggers the next big one, which we're overdue for right now. Now, the San Andreas Fault runs through California for some 1,200 kilometers, forming the boundary between the Pacific and the North American tectonic plates. The southern section of this fault, east of Los Angeles, has been abnormally quiet, with no large earthquakes for nearly 300 years, despite an average gap between quakes of about 180. So, it's 120 years overdue, per se. And they're saying that the movement of the plates in the area has built up a large amount of stress and energy within this fault, saying that it's pretty much like 10 months pregnant, about to pop. And that's coming from someone from the San Diego State University Earthquake Department there in California, stating that this goes back to an ancient lake, and that if this lake fills back up again, you're going to see it trigger the San Andreas Fault. Because when they go back and they look at all the biggest quakes that were triggered on the San Andreas Fault line, they come to find out that this lake was filled almost every single time. This ancient lake, as you can see here on the left, was massive. Absolutely massive. The area of the Salton Sea is the southern bit of what is left of it, and the actual lake itself is up here. It's very, very small, a recreational center. This is a shot of it on the right. It's a very, very little tiny reservoir that takes on this name. But this ancient lake was massive. It was this size. So I would say if there's any flooding that takes place in this area for whatever reason, coming off that river for whatever reason, all that water weight is said to be the trigger that sets this all into motion. So now, with them ramping up their climate agenda full scale, and with California and the Sierras getting a ton of snow, let's see what comes down that Colorado River. And let's see if any flooding hits this area. And if you do see flooding hit this area around the Salton Sea and any swarming starts, I would get ready. That may be your only sign that this thing is about to come unzipped. I got a feeling it's going to be a rather big one. It could release the energy in a series of smaller quakes, but history has shown us it likes to let loose with big ones. So, one thing to watch for out in the West Coast, this area around Coachella, and those waterways where the Colorado River drains down into this region, into that Salton Sea basin. If it fills up and starts to flood, that may be the only warning sign that you get that this thing may go. So, pressure from all this water weight right there on the San Andreas connected to all the recent big quakes. And I'd bet it would definitely be what sets this thing into motion. So there you have it, some updated info.
That's interesting. That is very interesting. Okay. What could happen? All right. Who knows? Who knows? Let me get into the article right here talking about that. 1 second. Seismologists suspect earthquake on San Andreas fault lines imminent despite odd attention parameters. A trio of seismologists affiliated with Instituto Nacional I can't pronounce the name. The Berkeley Seismology Laboratory, University of California, Berkeley reports that a part of the San Andreas Fault at Parkfield is not producing signals that would suggest an earthquake is going to happen anytime soon, but they assert there are factors that suggest otherwise. The paper authored by Luca Magalini, Robert Nadeau, and Tom Parsons is published in the journal Frontiers in Earth Science. The part of the San Andreas Fault located near Parkfield, California, offers scientists who study earthquakes as a unique opportunity. Just north of Parkfield, two major plates creep against one another at a constant rate. South of Parkfield, on the other hand, the fault is locked. Because of this, earthquakes happen there in a pattern roughly every 22 years that allows researchers to gather seismic data before, during, and after a quake. Such quakes are almost always the same magnitude as well, approximately 6 or a slight higher. The last quake to happen at the site occurred in 2004, which suggests a quake should be coming in the next couple of years. But there's a problem. Seismic activity related to the fault does not indicate any signs of an earthquake. Usually they note low-frequency waves attenuate prior to a quake, while high-frequency waves increase. But there is no sign of either right now. The research team notes that the last earthquake to occur in the area was approximately 14 years late, but that was because other earthquakes occurred in close proximity to take the pressure off Parkfield. That is not the case this time around. Still, the researchers believe a quake is going to happen soon because of other factors. These include pressure in nearby parts of the fault that could lead to an earthquake, both with a somewhat displaced epicenter. The researchers do not have a high confidence in their readings. Thus, they are not going to be making any formal predictions. Instead, they suggest, as always the case with earthquakes, everyone will just have to wait and see what happens. In this case, though, waiting is not such a problem. Hardly anyone lives in the area. All right. And that is something to be interested about. Okay. Now let's see about the Chinese whistleblower warning about Chinese spies are basically flooding the U.S. under. Let's talk about that now. We already have Chinese police stations in New York City. I don't know if you know about that. The Chinese revealed that unprecedented Chinese spies are being allowed to pour through the southern border. Absolutely, the Chinese illegal aliens, when asked if they are Chinese spies today. InfoWars, in an interview conducted this week in Nikolai, Colombia, by reporters from Mother.com, the Chinese migrant who was on his way to the U.S. through Latin America said that the Chinese government was interested in stealing secrets from the U.S. Asked how he knew this, the man said that he simply followed the news. The Chinese claims makes perfectly clear it's to steal high-tech technology, especially chips used in missile guidance systems. He noted that most of the Chinese government technology advances come through theft from the U.S., as well as in the theft of valuable technology. The man spoke about the Chinese attitude towards America more generally, including its attitude towards American culture and American people. They really just mock America. They mock everything. They teach Chinese people to hate America, Then those high-ranking officials of the Chinese Communist Party send their wives and children to study in America, hire here, play here, live in high-end villas. They even transfer their money to America. Then in China, they instruct people to hate America. Everything bad is attributed to America. Kind of hypocritical. You hate America, live here and study.
Do you think that there are Chinese spies in America?
Absolutely. Absolutely, of course. Chinese government always steal high technology, such as semiconductor field and military field.
They teach Chinese people to hate America. You know?
Where are you going?
I will go to America.
Okay, why are you going to America?
Because I want to break away from China's authoritarian regime. There is no democracy or freedom. There is no rule of law in the country. I want to go to the United States because it is a country that emphasizes the rule of law, human rights, democracy, and freedom.
Do you think that there are Chinese spies in America?
Absolutely. Absolutely, of course. I think including, especially high technology field or military field.
How do you know this information? Because I am in China, and I often follow the news. You see, because the Chinese government is determined to steal American high technology, including these chips. The manufacturing of chips. With this high-tech chip, they can precisely locate missiles. Many high-tech advancements can only be developed this way. Otherwise, it's just scrap metal, useless. So I hope the US government continues to sanction and contain China's high-tech development in this area. And they continue to steal America's high technology for national defense purposes by any means necessary. You know? Like, for example, China will steal certain material. They steal the technology from America to achieve success.
Chinese government always steal high technology such as semiconductor field and
Sounds like he's repeating himself. Okay. When asked about his motivations for making the long journey from China through Latin America to the American border, the man said, "I want to break away from Chinese authoritarian regime. There's no democracy. There's no rule of law in the country. The scale of illegal migration from China to the U.S. and the threat it poses to national security has been growing concern in recent days." It was revealed that more than 46,000 Chinese nationals have been apprehended by Border Patrol since the beginning of 2023 fiscal year. Apprehension at the border are growing, with over 1,000 Chinese nationals being met by Border Patrol in a single day. On Tuesday, April 9th, 800 of them were single males. According to Fox News correspondent Bill Milligan, our CBP and ICE contacts tell us that the large majority of the Chinese are released into the U.S. and are not deported or removed, as China has generally been uncooperative with accepting deportation flights. Mayorkas said today there have been one removal flight to China recently, and the conversations with the Chinese government are ongoing in an effort to try to get them to accept more. This is something that people have been talking about for years now. All right, that we have people coming over here and they're fighting age men, military men, and it seems like, yeah, it's an invasion from every different type of ethnic group coming over here. And it seems like all they need is the right time and they will be armed with guns. You see with these illegal migrants, they're coming over here, they're getting guns, getting arrested, being let back on the street, getting arrested, getting let back on the street. It's only a matter of time. It just feels like something is about to go down. Okay? When it comes to it. That's what it really feels like. All right.
The global elite.
About banning of meat now. This is insane. They did say, I mean, Charles Schwab did say that we'll be eating bugs, we will own nothing and be happy. And they did talk about how they wanted to ban people from eating meat. Let's get into that.
Are planning to close down all airports, ban the consumption of beef and lamb, and ban the construction of new buildings as part of a sudden and sweeping quantum leap to address the so-called climate crisis. According to the elite, humanity must learn to suffer until the climate crisis has been dealt with.
Notice that they're talking about us, but not them. They don't get to suffer.
How long will that take? According to government documents, we are looking at 4 decades minimum of severe deprivations, including a ban on new clothes. But you don't have to take my word for it. These future horrors are laid out in black and white in a British government document, which outlines the future for humanity under a dictatorship run by the World Economic Forum if we don't rise up as one and overthrow these tyrants. Before we get to the global elite have become and have stopped bothering to conceal their evil agenda. Yet, still the majority of people refuse to believe that the elite are planning to depopulate the globe and enslave the remaining 5 to 10% of useless eaters they allow to survive. Anyone who's still doubting that the elite are planning to make life hell for those who survived the Great Cull should take a look at the British government's WF Influence Absolute Zero report. The British government report outlines what life will be like for citizens in the coming years and paints a grim picture of authoritarianism and deprivation. To give you some idea, the report states that all airports must close down by 2029, excluding Heathrow, Glasgow and Belfast airports, which will be allowed to stay open to accommodate private jets. This is remarkably convenient for the global elite because we know how much they enjoy flying around the world in private jets while lecturing the rest of us to stop flying commercial. All remaining airports must then close between 2030 and 2049 because, in order to meet the legal commitment of zero emissions by 2050, everybody must stop using aeroplanes, according to the government reports, until the so-called climate crisis has been brought under control. Except for the global elite, of course, because, as Bill Gates explains, people such as himself are part of the solution to climate change. So they're exempt from the new rules.
What do you say to the charge that if you are a climate change campaigner, but you also travel around the world in a private jet, you're a hypocrite?
Well, I by the gold standard of funding Climeworks to do direct air capture that far exceeds my family's carbon footprint. And I spend billions of dollars on climate innovation. So, should I stay at home and not come to Kenya and learn about farming and malaria? Anyway,
So he feels he's exempt from it all. He feels he doesn't have his family's carbon footprint. It's nothing compared to our family's carbon footprint. You see the gall of this man?
I'm comfortable with the idea that not only am I not part of the problem by paying for the offsets, but also through the billions that my Breakthrough Energy group is spending, that I'm part of the solution.
In addition, the report states that to obey the law of the Climate Change Act, the public will be required to stop doing anything that causes emissions regardless of its energy source.
But his family could do anything that causes the problem with the climate change and the energy emission source.
According to the report, this will require the public to never eat beef or lamb ever again. To achieve this, consumption of beef and lamb will drop by 50% between 2020 and 2029. Then between 2030 and 2049, beef and lamb will be phased out, and it will become illegal to eat red meat unless you have a license. Given that we know how much the
that is ridiculous.
Delegates at the WF enjoy their fine cuts of meat, there are no prizes for guessing where the licenses will be handed out. The hypocrisy of the globalists knows no bounds. At the recent UN Climate Summit in Dubai, they were serving gourmet burgers and other expensive meat dishes, while making plans to ban the rest of the world from eating a meat-based diet. Fox News reports that in the summit's online portal, its food offerings included juicy beef, slabs of succulent meat, smoked Wagyu burgers, Philly cheesesteaks, and melt-in-your-mouth barbecue, in addition to African street barbecue, fast casual Mexican fare, and an Asian option that has a touch of French flair. According to leaders from the World Economic Forum and UN, the elites need the nutrients found in gourmet meat to govern the world, and they must be exempt from the insect and bug diet they are pushing on the world in the name of reducing carbon. Once again, it's one rule for thee and another for me.
Pretty much. This is how it is. This is how it's going down. People are not seeing it. You even have actors like Robert Downey Jr., Nicole Kidman. You got Selma Hayek pushing this crap. You got Angelina Jolie pushing this crap. You got Steve Colbert, night show entertainer, pushing this nonsense. Everybody should be eating bugs. Okay? It's insane what's going on.
But if you think the globalist vision is simply misguided and that they have our best interests at heart, I've got news for you. Their latest announcements make it clear that you are the carbon they want to reduce. We've got more after this important word from our sponsor. It's need epidemics to practice, and COVID was just a drill to prepare for the next authoritarian power grab. As Gates explained in Australia on his recent world tour, the COVID pandemic was a successful drill, and the next intervention by the global elite will be like a fire that goes global.
To have a dedicated team, not just for when the epidemic comes, but to go to the world's countries and make sure that these drills are being done. You know, we do fire drills.
All right, this is as far as I could go. And this is what he wants, man. This is what he is trying to push on us all. All right. But let's talk about an agenda right now that is being pushed on Black people to try to make us look dumber and make us look like parasites, and to have basically the whole of the United States hating Black people and making us look like parasites. Let's get into this. What the Texas Democrat suggests for Black people. Let's get into that.
And counties across America are considering a reparations program. Evanston, Illinois already has established one. It's costing taxpayers $10 million. Now, one Texas Democrat is taking it a step farther. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is suggesting that all Black people should be exempt from paying all taxes as a form of reparations. Here it is.
One of the things that they propose is Black folk not have to pay taxes for a certain amount of time, because then again, that puts money back in your pocket. And that's one of the reasons that, you know, we argue the reparations make sense, because so many Black folk, not only do you owe for the labor that was stolen and killed and all the other things. And so it's like, if you do the no tax thing, for people that are already, say, struggling and aren't really paying taxes in the first place, it doesn't really exactly.
All right.
How about for reparations? Just like the Jews got their reparations, give the Blacks their reparations. Okay. Fixing schools that are not good, that are poor and understaffed, and have faulty equipment in the Black community. Put trade schools in the Black community. Okay. Tangibles like that. Okay. That's what I would say would be a form of reparations. Not saying you don't have to pay taxes. Just dumber and dumber things for reparations.
Just been jazz-flamed.
Well, I tell you, the economic debate about reparations has been going on for quite a while now. It started out in California, now it's more national.
Right.
I will tell you, I was looking at two different studies from two different professors, one at Duke, one at Harvard. The estimated range of what it would cost on a national basis to pay reparations is anywhere from 10 to 19 trillion
Wait a minute. How much is our debt?
We are sitting on $28 trillion as a nation in debt right
More
now.
More than half of
money
the
to
debt?
Ukraine, yes, that's what the overall cost would be if some of these discussions and proposals came to fruition. Look, slavery was America's original sin. I agree with Mitch McConnell on that, but we can't afford this right now. There are other ways that we can find.
It's funny how you say you can't afford this right now. You could afford a war. Funding neo-Nazis in Ukraine and funding Zionist psychopaths in Israel. I find that hilarious. We can't afford this right now, but you could afford supporting Ukraine. You can afford supporting Zionist psychopath Israel. Okay? Like I said, heck, you want to try and help Taiwan. Okay? Try to defend Taiwan against China. You could throw your money anywhere you want. But when it comes to reparations and actually dealing with the problem, oh, we can't do this right now. Oh, we can't afford this right now. This is just nonsense. It's nonsense. That's what it is. And I blame both parties for this. Okay, the Democrats, I wonder how much they paid that woman to come up with that foolishness for blacks not to pay taxes. Making blacks look like freeloading, good-for-nothing parasites. It's always that way with this reparation. When it came to California, you wanted one state of California to pay for the reparations. About to make it bankrupt. And then when it came down to it, oh, you know, reparations, there's no way that we could actually put a price tag on reparations and what has been done. And blacks just foolishly go along with it. Heck, I mean, when it came to Kamala Harris, she didn't give a damn about reparations. She didn't give a damn that HBCUs are closing down. Let's just give these blacks a party. And that's what it's about. It's just really insane. And you just know they just, I don't know, they just pick these, you know, black people off the street. Hey, you want to be a politician? Okay. That's how I see it. It's just, where do you pick these people from? How much did you pay them to say this nonsense? Okay.
Mind if we choose so as a nation to give out reparations, but this is not the way. Financial payments is not the way, and more tax issues. And
yeah, excuse me. So I think that when we look, for example, at Evanston's program, it was very, very narrowly tailored to help with housing inequality, right? So it did things like tax credits and some payments to help address long-term segregation in housing. That's a very narrowly tailored reparations bill, and they did studies.
What about poor white people?
Voters,
what did they get?
And voters supported that. But
poor white people aren't a part of the reparations. It's for black people. Forget the poor white people. Okay? They're not the subject of the discussion right now. And I wonder why this guy isn't saying anything. He just sit there and dish up. He hasn't said a word.
Voters overwhelmingly supported it. I think what I would actually prefer to reparations is to fix some of our longstanding problems that still exist in how we do federal government programs that are unequal, not just with race, but with class and with economy, a whole number of things. But some of these programs are tailored narrowly and I think can be beneficial to communities.
Do you think black people shouldn't pay taxes?
I think everyone should pay taxes.
Okay. A high tide rises all boats. No, a high tide raises all boats. That's the point. That's what Donald Trump figured out, and that's how he lowered black unemployment to the lowest it's been in 50 years.
I just don't think black people need blue-haired liberals to rescue us. I think we're hardworking people. You know, a lot of us didn't have it easy. But a lot of us are willing to do the work every single day.
And we can.
And we've been doing the work. The number one small businesses in the country is black women. And so I think what would behoove
we have black entrepreneurs 2024 in 2023, 2022. Yeah, we should get black Americans should get reparations. They should. I don't know. And the Republican side is the blacks on the Republican side is just as disgusting on the blacks on the Democrat side, saying that they shouldn't. They should get reparations, but it should be like nonsense. As you can see, blacks are just slaves on a plantation, whether it's the left or the right. No longer interested in listening to any more drivel. This is all I got for now, folks. Let me know what you think. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you feel like hitting up the Cash App, feel free to hit up the Cash App. Anything else you want to know about this channel, once again, is in the description box. Okay, later.